Hey everybody, welcome back to Breakfast with Bob from Oceanside, California. Our host hotel is the beautiful Mission Pacific. My name is Bob Babbitt. We're brought to you by MasterSpas. SFuels go longer. HOKA, let's fly. Form Smart Swim Goggles. Zoot Sports, the original triathlon brand. Premium Plus Sports. And of course, our Challenged Athletes Foundation. Our next guest, the 2022 champion of CLASH Watkins Glen, Sophie Watts. That looked like such a cool course. How you doing, Sophie?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on the show, Bob. And yeah, I'm just super excited. It was a great race in CLASH, and I think we'll get some hills here on the bike too, and a really fast run. So, and hopefully good conditions on Saturday.
What's pretty funny about Watkins Glen, because you think about it, you got Daytona Speedway to Miami Speedway, and I think everybody's thinking, okay, flat, fast, just run. And you come out of the water and you're basically climbing forever, right? It's a brutal course, and when you're on the track, it's a road course. So there's a lot of climbing on that race. Yeah,
I enjoyed it. I think we got a little bit of everything. There was actually a probably 800-meter section of gravel too, so nice. not anticipated, and they did a great job with clearing it up and making it as safe as possible for the athletes. But I think that's what it truly means to be a triathlete, is just being very adaptable and being able to showcase your abilities on lots of different courses with lots of different factors to them, whether it be hills, tracks, technical courses, ocean swims, lake swims.
So you were cross country, and was running and swimming when you were growing up, or was it running and just a little bit of swimming? What was your focus?
Yeah, so I grew up primarily a swimmer. My dad was in the Navy as well, as my husband now is. And so we were always growing up on the water, always had great access to pools.
Yeah.
And I grew up in Northern Virginia for the most part, although we did move a lot with the Navy. And there's a really big swim team season there in the summer. And so as a little 5-year-old, that's when my parents just threw me in the water and kind of sink or swim. So just enjoyed the team camaraderie. And that's where I really developed my love of competition, and just competing, seeing how I could be the best athlete I could be. And then as I got into high school is when I decided to actually try running to stay in shape for the swim season. And luckily I had coaches in high school that allowed me to do both sports.
Right.
So I competed cross country, indoor and outdoor track, as well as the swim season, which was in the winter. And then in college is when I focused primarily on distance running, and actually dropping the swimming and the cross training I was doing really was detrimental to my running, interestingly enough, in college. And when I added that back in, that's when I started to see success again.
Right.
So I think that is a really big part of my story of how I became a triathlete. Is I grew up in both the sports, and so just adding the bike in there. And
what's interesting is you're swimming, and you're basically you're running to stay in shape for swimming. Right, and then you cut third in the state in cross country.
Yeah. No, that was the crazy part. Was I got third as a freshman in cross country.
Yeah.
And I mean, of course, at the time you're like, okay, like I guess that's good. I don't really know. And
the other cross country guys who were like just focused on that are going, I can't believe she got third in the state.
Yeah.
With very little background in this stuff.
Yeah. No. And so I think initially it was kind of a means to an end. I was like, oh, I'm just gonna stay in shape and have fun with my friends, but that was where we saw, thankfully, praise God that I did have talent in that area. And so, just made the most of those opportunities. And I remember at one point in high school, we had a regional track meet and then state swim meet, both at George Mason University the same day. And so I went and swam prelims in the morning, went back and ran the 1 mile and the 2 mile, and then went back and swam the finals for the 100 breaststroke that night. So I was already doing a triathlon essentially.
You definitely were, yeah. And you win back-to-back cross-country titles, 2011, 2012, team title in 2012. My favorite event, one of my favorite events, is Foot Locker.
Mm-hmm.
I go down every year just to reassure myself that the world's in a great place, because they introduce all of you athletes, because you 3-time Foot Locker. Mm-hmm. And people don't realize how hard that is to just qualify to get to Foot Locker, because they take is it 8 men and 8 women from each of 4 regions, something like that?
I think, yeah, it's 8 to 10. I think the year I did it, it was 10 from each region.
Yes.
So usually it's about 40 athletes.
40 athletes in the country who they come out to San Diego, put up at the Hotel Del, and families are out here. It is the only national championship in any high school sport. Is the Foot Locker National Champion. I don't know what they call it now, but we'll always know it as Foot Locker. You're going up against the very best. And when they introduce all the athletes, it's, here's Sophie Watts. She's valedictorian. She's president of the debate team. She's in the choir. I mean, you're sitting there going, we're in good shape. All these people are amazing. The country's in great shape because these people are all overachievers, right? Everybody's doing great. How cool was it to run at Morley Field and run that Foot Locker race? Which, think about it, all the legends, Meb Keflezighi, Dathan Rizzo, every top legend of running ran there. Sarah Hall, everybody.
Oh, it was so special, and I still have such fond memories of that race. And I actually still am very good friends with a lot of the now women that I competed against during those high school years. And yeah, I mean, you talked just about the historic factor of it, and that's what I just love about sport in general. I mean, you talk about Ironman and the different aspects of triathlon and Kona and just the historical aspect of that too. And I was a history major in college, so I feel like it means even more to me.
Yes.
And then getting put up at talking about Foot Locker at the Hotel Del and just kind of rolling out the red carpet. That was kind of my first introduction to really first that level of competition.
Right.
But to, just enjoying the fruits of my labors and qualifying for that event and getting, just this amazing experience and getting to know the other athletes and just enjoying that. So, definitely really cool. We went back a couple weeks ago because we live just across from Coronado Island, and it's pretty
cool.
cool.
Did you go to Morley Field? I was out there.
Yes, I've been there, and then also to the Hotel Del and just all the spots. So
it's very cool. So Stanford, that's what you said. So you can run a stress for back-to-back stress fractures, mono your sophomore year, eating disorders. You started college, high mileage, no cross training. Then the coach started adding some cycling and swimming, and that made a big difference.
Yeah, so that in high school, I was relatively low mileage and very high quality workouts, I would say. And then was also swimming, a little bit of elliptical, stationary biking as well. And then, was essentially thrown into a program that was high mileage, and it worked for some women on my team, but for other women like myself, it just did not work at all. And so unfortunately, as you stated, injuries followed. I mean, college in general, it's just so much change. And it's the first time you're away from home. For me, I was 3,000 miles away from my parents, and just sort of those safeguards that would have helped me kind of through that situation. And so just kind of having to deal with that and go through that was very difficult. But I praise God for that, just because that's where I felt like I really found myself and found my identity in my faith, my Christian faith as well, and really trusting God in that, and realizing that when something was taken away from me, primarily running, I didn't just fall to pieces. Like in the past, that's what would have happened is, injuries are tough no matter what. And it didn't discount the emotions and everything that happened there. But now I feel like as I've gone through also another difficult 2 years, the last 2 years, I've been able to really push through it and deal with it more positively and better, just based on those past experiences. And that, my full identity isn't in my sport, right? I know who's Sophie Watts outside of triathlon, and I'm just grateful for those experiences, as hard as they were.
So then you get identified by the USA Triathlon Collegiate Recruiting Program to find pro triathletes. If you look back, Gwen Jorgensen was identified when she was at Wisconsin. Katie Zafaras, who I represent, was identified when she was at Syracuse and running the steeplechase. And those people all went on to Summer Rappaport. All those folks went on to the Olympics. So who reached out to you?
Yeah, so Barb Lindquist
It was Barb.
I love
The
Barb.
best.
She was the
She swam at
recruiter.
Stanford, right?
She did, yes.
Okay,
So
that's
she
right.
met with actually one of my strength coaches at an NCAA regional meet. And my strength coach had identified me on the team as someone that had a swim background,
Right.
As well as obviously running. And so Barb had reached out and said, hey, we have this fabulous opportunity to do triathlon. We have the collegiate recruitment program is what it was called at
Yep.
the time, where essentially, you have to qualify through swim tests and have to run
a certain time.
for the 5K. And so they took us down, and I was in the class with Morgan Pearson, who's, amazing.
Yes.
He's done so well, and a couple other women who unfortunately are no longer in the sport, but did really well. Mary Alex England and
I remember that
Ellie
name, yeah.
Abrahamson,
Yeah,
who's actually from San Diego. So just great women as
With
well.
her twin sister
Yes.
or sister. Yes, that's right.
Emma, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So we had a really, really strong class coming in. And so we went down to Scottsdale initially and did some swim testing down there. And then, was blessed with a spot and moved down to San Diego, where we were based, Carlsbad, primarily in June 2017 after I graduated.
Very cool. And how soon after that? Now, at that point, were you thinking Olympics in terms of triathlon?
Absolutely. Yeah, that was definitely the dream and the goal coming out of college. I knew I was a solid runner, but we've seen the times, right?
The time.
It's crazy, 14:30
there's no surprises.
for a 5K, right?
You're like,
so,
I'm out.
Yeah, so I knew my strength definitely was going to lie in triathlon if I wanted a shot.
Yeah.
And so, that was essentially the goal up until I would say 2020 is when things changed for me and just there was a lot going on that year, obviously, with the pandemic and everything, and just realizing, although I enjoyed my experiences and, just enjoyed going after the dream of going to the Olympics, that didn't really inspire me anymore. And I always felt like my strengths lied in the longer distance in terms of I'm very much a, grinded out athlete. I just frankly didn't have this speed I really needed to get out on swims.
Yes.
And so I was a bit inconsistent in whether I could make a pack or not, especially at the WTS level, which, you just have to be an Olympic level swimmer.
Totally.
And just obviously the bike packs are crazy too. So I just have enjoyed long course. I feel like it is my niche and very thankful to be on this side of the sport. As hard as it was, to give up the Olympic dream, but I think I was ready, and I have so many goals in this side of the sport that I don't miss it. So
Yeah, well, I was going to say, because when you look at the Olympic format, you're talking 19th, 39th, 26th, then you move over to longer distance, and you're third at Ironman Texas, and you're seventh at 70.3 St. George. You're like, okay, I don't need to be a brain surgeon to figure this out. This are better for me.
Yeah, that was really cool to see just right off the bat, coming in with probably about a month of long course training, I would say, and still be quite competitive with women that I've frankly really looked up to for years. And so, I think that especially in Galveston and St. George, that really inspired me and it confirmed that I was in the right place in terms of I love this, I enjoy this, where at the end of my time in ITU Olympic distance racing, I was just not enjoying it. I wasn't enjoying the training. I was not enjoying having to fly everywhere around the world each month and chase points, chase rankings. And on this side, obviously we can still travel, but there are so many more opportunities domestically, as well as to partner with companies too. I felt like that was the side that I really didn't have the opportunity on the ITU side, but now on the long course side, I feel like I can have a bit more of a personality and really develop my team around me.
Yes,
right?
you can. You're a brand.
Yeah,
you create your own brand.
Yep. Yeah, 100%, which has been really, really cool. So.
And so your husband's in the service.
Yes.
So you're based downtown San Diego, the birthplace of triathlon. So you probably ride a few times a week over to Fiesta Island and do all sorts of training in what we consider the Mecca.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's been awesome. So he's on the U.S. Portland as the supply and logistics officer. And we actually were in Tennessee, and then we moved to Newport, Rhode Island last year for him to go through supply school. And then we had a couple options, but San Diego is definitely top on the list. So we're super thankful that we got sent out here, and hopefully we can stay for the shore tour that's coming up as well.
One of the things we were chatting about before we started the show was I've always felt that somebody, and I see it more with women, they come into college and end up getting injured. And I don't know if maybe in high school they're running 20 to 30 miles a week, maybe 40, and then all of a sudden become 70. And all of a sudden then maybe they cross-train before and the cross-training goes away. As somebody who's lived through that, would you like to see more college coaches embrace more cross-training in their programs?
Oh, 100%. I mean, just the level of impact that you're able to take off your body and legs is by far just, I mean, it's undisputed. I feel like at this point, like there's so much research that shows that how beneficial it is. I think the bigger issue is just kind of this cultural mindset of classifying, especially when it in regards to weight and body types and things like that. That for me is something I really struggled with in college, and frankly even parts of my triathlon career, especially early on too, where I went through experiences with coaches where weight was an issue and brought up, and that's really discouraging and frustrating. Because again, there's it's a number that really doesn't matter at the end of the day. Health, overall sustainability as an athlete is really what matters. And so I think just kind of getting out of that mindset and that framework and working with professionals, whether it be registered dietitians or sports psychologists or other access to other resources besides just the training and the coach itself is so important. And I think I've seen really positive steps just as an alumni now happening at Stanford. But it needs to happen everywhere for sure.
Yeah, no question. I would love to see bike trainers on the track, right? Where you can do your intervals and get on the bike in between, loosen up the legs, get the stuff up without the pounding. I just think there's just way too much. Running is something that, and I think a lot of coaches, their job in their mind is I want to get that next job. So when they find somebody who's really good, they're going to put them in everything. Sort of use that person, not thinking about what's their career after college. One of my favorite coaches, Coach Bob Larson, I asked him once, what makes a successful coach? He goes, if an athlete I work with is still running 10 years after college, then I've been successful. And I love that answer. I thought that was phenomenal. Now, you mentioned nutrition and diet issues. What have you changed in the last year? Because it seems like you're more on top of it than you were.
Yeah, no, I mean, this year has been really transformational in a lot of ways. I think going into it, I'm a very naturally stubborn person, and I'm very independent, in the sense that I like to control everything. But honestly, I sometimes will take it all on myself rather than finding other people in my life, whether now it be a registered dietitian, Susan Kitchen I'm working with, my chiropractor, strength coach, whoever it may be. And so that's really been the change this year, is really building a team of people around me to help me. And specifically in relation to diet and nutrition, that's been a major change, just based on some findings that I likely had a hiatal hernia last year, which is essentially when your stomach comes up into your diaphragm. So probably why I couldn't breathe and was dealing with like acid reflux and all these crazy heart palpitations and issues, which it's crazy to think your stomach can cause those things. I had no idea. But yeah, I'm super thankful that it finally feels like we have answers, and we can actually specifically target the issues. Because initially I was having these crazy symptoms where, I thought I had heart issues just based on how I felt and what was going on with that. But very thankfully, all the tests with my doctors came back completely clean, clean bill of health. So now it's just been kind of dealing with acid reflux and just more, I would say, GERD-related symptoms that were probably likely caused by that, which we're targeting through being gluten-free, dairy-free, and just figuring out what the triggers essentially are. But it's been really important to make sure I'm still getting in enough calories, as well as a really specific plan for race day, just because I get the most symptoms from, being on the bike and then coming up on the run. That's what we saw last year too in my racing. And so working with Susan, my dietitian, has been really helpful, as well as getting a new bike fit and making sure I can open up my diaphragm much better. I've been working with Psychologic with Barry and the guys over there. So it still feels like it's crazy. I'm 7 years into this, 6 years into this, and I still feel like a total amateur with all these things. But I think that's probably, all of us are constantly learning and growing and evolving as athletes. And it's great to have an amazing team, not to mention Zoot, Rudy Project, Head that I added this year too. So I'm super thankful to all my sponsors and all the people that are supporting me in this journey.
What are the goals this year?
Yeah, I think, this sounds kind of cliche, but stay healthy. Just have a healthy year, finish races. But I think, it's a lot is up in the air. So unfortunately, with the change in the ranking systems for PTO, I really dropped a lot. So last year I was sitting in pretty securely in the top 30, which would have helped me get into races pretty easily for this year. But fortunately and unfortunately, I've moved back quite a bit. So I'm outside of that ranking to be able to qualify specifically for the PTO European Open. So at this point, we're thinking potentially St. George. There's still some thoughts either way. Just what opportunity is better for me where I'm at right now, and also to set me up for the rest of the season. But other than that, I would love to race U.S. Open for sure. And then going forward for Singapore or 70.3 Worlds, that's another call. We'll just have to look at, see where I'm at. And honestly, this is very, very dependent on how the rest of the season goes and I can stay healthy and, all my issues are good. I am really interested in doing a full distance, whether it be at the end of this year or we push that to next year. But that is definitely a goal of mine and I would at least love to try it. And I think especially with the rankings, PTO, how they've set it up now, getting that 5% bonus too
5% bonus to do a full
is awesome too.
Yes.
And I think, being a well-rounded athlete, I think is really great. We see all the great athletes are really great at both. So
they really are. Yeah. You have to. Yeah. When you look at this, it's funny. You look at U.S. Open, you go ninth, but ninth is in that field. It's like a world championship field, and you get ninth there. That's probably your biggest payday, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that's what's amazing. So thankful for the PTO and what they're doing for this sport, just making it financially viable, especially coming from ITU where essentially I was making no money.
Right.
So it's really difficult to survive as an athlete for sure, and continue to, have the equipment you need and eat and all those important things in life. So it's really awesome what they're doing and just also pushing opportunities to race the best in the world too, and get us all in one place.
That's always the best. Sophie, thank you so much for taking time. It's great. I know a few different times we're supposed to chat. We never were able to get together. You are doing great stuff. And having control of what's going on with your body is such a huge deal.
Oh, I appreciate that, Bob. And we look forward to racing soon. And hopefully
it's your backyard now.
I know.
You got the race in San Diego. You got the. Have you been spending much time on the run course or on the bike? At the bike course, you can't do the whole thing, but you can do parts of it.
Yeah. We've rode Camp Pendleton a lot, especially actually when we lived here in the ITU scene.
Right.
But we came down here probably a couple weeks ago. We drove the back course to see the hills. And then hopefully I'll get on the run course when it's not raining and swim a little bit on Friday. My husband will be here and also with our dog. So definitely come and say hey and
love it.
Should be a fun day.
Sophie, thanks so much for taking time.
Thank you guys.
Sophie Watts has been our guest, everybody. Again, Breakfast with Bob. We're here at the beautiful Mission Pacific Hotel. Hold on. We'll be right back.